There is a quiet ache that lives inside every seeker, an ache that whispers, "Show me something, prove to me that I'm on the right path." We don't admit it out loud, but we feel it in the pauses between our thoughts, in the way our eyes drift toward repeating numbers, in the way we replay coincidences like sacred clues. We want assurance. We want confirmation. We want the universe to lean down and say, "Yes, you are safe. Yes, you are guided. Yes, keep going." But there is a hidden cost to this obsession. The more desperately we search for signs, the more we drain the very energy that would have drawn them to us naturally. Because every time we plead for a signal, we subtly affirm that we do not trust the intelligence that already surrounds us. We tense our energy. We tighten the field. We collapse possibility through fear disguised as curiosity. In physics, this tension has a name: the observer effect. What the mind anxiously grasps at, the quantum field withdraws from. When you stare too intensely at a wave, you force it to behave like a particle. You shrink its infinite potential into the smallest version of itself. And spiritually, the same mechanism unfolds. When you try too hard to verify that you are supported, you unintentionally signal that you believe you are not. Mystics have known this for centuries. Hermeticists warned that the clinging mind obscures the movement of spirit. The Tao Te Ching teaches that those who grasp lose. Jung wrote that the psyche responds to openness, not compulsion. But we have grown addicted to the hypervigilance of modern spirituality, a kind of metaphysical surveillance. We count angel numbers like currency. We analyze dreams like courtroom evidence. We search for meaning behind every text, every silence, every coincidence, as if the universe were a cryptographer withholding our destiny behind coded patterns. We do this because we are afraid. Afraid to trust our own intuition, afraid to misstep, afraid that the universe might abandon us if we stop checking whether it's still there. Yet every act of spiritual desperation broadcasts the same frequency. I don't believe I am truly guided unless something external proves it. This is the energetic cost. You outsource your inner authority. You fracture your coherence. You scatter your attention across symbols instead of stabilizing your awareness within yourself. The universe does not respond to scattered energy. It responds to centered presence. And that presence dissolves the need for external confirmation, not because signs disappear, but because they begin to move toward you effortlessly. Synchronicities multiply when you no longer hunt them. Intuition sharpens when you no longer force it. Life becomes responsive the moment you stop interrogating it. You are not meant to live by chasing signs. You are meant to live in such deep alignment that the signs have no choice but to find you. This is where the journey begins, not in pursuit, but in remembering that the very field you are seeking validation from is the same field breathing through you, pulsing through your emotions, shaping your perceptions, and responding to your inner state with absolute precision. The universe has never stopped speaking to you. It has only been waiting for you to quiet the noise of needing proof. The observer effect: how anxious focus collapses possibility too soon. There is a paradox at the heart of human consciousness. The more intensely we try to monitor an unfolding possibility, the more we restrict its freedom to evolve. The universe is not a machine that requires constant supervision. It is a living field of probability, fluid and responsive, shaping itself according to the emotional posture of the observer. In the quantum world, particles do not exist as fixed objects until they are observed. They remain in a state of pure potential, a shimmering wave of possibilities, each one equally real, equally accessible, equally ready to become. But the moment an observer watches too closely, the wave collapses into a single outcome. The infinite becomes finite, the possible becomes predetermined. This scientific truth mirrors a spiritual one. When you anxiously watch your life for signs, you collapse your own potential too soon. What you monitor with fear becomes rigid. What you pressure becomes delayed. What you scrutinize with insecurity becomes distorted. It is not the observation itself that creates the problem, it is the quality of the observer's energy. An open, relaxed awareness allows reality to organize itself with grace. But anxious attention, checking, rechecking, anticipating, worrying, interrupts the intelligence of the field. It forces the universe to answer questions it wasn't finished forming yet. Many people believe their manifestations aren't working, or that life has become silent, or that their intuition has dulled. But often, nothing is wrong. What is wrong is that they are trying to measure the seed while it is still underground. Every time they check its progress, they disturb its growth. Every time they demand a sign it's working, they signal to the universe that they doubt it is. In both physics and mysticism, the message is clear. Possibility needs space, potential needs patience. Energy needs room to breathe. The ancient sages understood this long before quantum science gave language to it. The Taoists spoke of Wu Wei, the art of non-forcing. The Upanishads taught that the divine reveals itself when the seeker becomes still. Buddhist masters warned against grasping mind, which interrupts the natural flow of events. Even Carl Jung observed that synchronicity thrives in an atmosphere of openness, not tension. When the psyche relaxes, symbolic events begin to cluster around us with uncanny precision. When we strain, they scatter. This is why anxious seekers so often feel spiritually starved. Their very effort to control the process blocks the process. The universe is not denying them signs, it is waiting for them to stop suffocating possibility with premature interpretation. When you let go of anxious focus, you restore the wave state. Your life returns to a field of infinite pathways, each one capable of unfolding into something greater than you can imagine. You allow timing to synchronize, you allow intuition to sharpen, you allow space for the unseen to take shape before you try to measure it. And in that spaciousness, possibility matures into reality, not because you forced it, but because you finally gave it room to grow. Detachment as expansion, allowing potential to mature before it's measured. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood forces in spiritual evolution. People hear the word and imagine indifference, passivity, or emotional withdrawal. But true detachment is not a lack of feeling, it is the presence of spaciousness. It is the conscious choice to let possibility breathe without rushing to define it. In the quantum world, every potential outcome begins as a wave, limitless, fluid, vibrant. Only when observed does it collapse into form. But what most people don't realize is that the quality of that collapse depends entirely on the surrounding environment. If the system is disturbed too early, the outcome is stunted. If it is allowed to mature undisturbed, it becomes coherent, powerful, fully realized. Spiritual potential operates the same way. When you detach not by disowning the desire, but by releasing the tension around it, you create the perfect conditions for the wave to grow. You stop suffocating the future with premature expectations. You stop collapsing possibilities through the lens of fear. You stop demanding answers before the question has finished forming inside you. Detachment is expansion because it frees the universe to orchestrate beyond the limits of your imagination. When you cling, you reduce life to the narrow bandwidth of your anxiety. When you release, life expands into realms you could never engineer through force. Ancient mystics taught this long before physics provided its equations. In the Hermetic tradition, detachment was called allowing the hidden to ripen. The Bhagavad Gita speaks of action without grasping, the state in which outcomes come naturally, because the actor no longer interferes with the flow. The Taoists believed that water succeeds not by force, but by allowing its nature to guide its path. Rumi wrote that what you seek is seeking you, but it cannot approach until the seeker stops blocking the doorway with their franticness. There is a reason synchronicity increases when you stop chasing it. A reason clarity arises when you stop demanding it. A reason the right people appear when you no longer manipulate outcomes. Detachment is a signal to the universe that you trust its timing more than your fear. It tells the field, I will not collapse this too soon. I will allow this possibility to unfold in its natural rhythm. It is in this relaxed posture that life begins to respond with a kind of gentle precision. Paths reveal themselves. Intuition gains clarity. The mind softens its grip, and suddenly the world feels alive again, responsive, intelligent, and fluid. You are not giving up on the outcome. You are giving up on the pressure that distorts it. Detachment is not distance. It is alignment. It is coherence. It is the choice to trust the unfolding rather than attempting to micromanage the cosmos. And in that trust, potential grows tall and wild, rooting itself deeper than you ever knew possible. The emotional posture of faith, confidence without evidence. Faith is often spoken of as belief, but belief is only its surface. The deeper truth is that faith is not an idea, it is an emotional posture. It is a way the heart holds itself long before the mind fully understands why. It is a quiet confidence that exists without physical evidence, because it is rooted in an inner knowing that predates logic. Faith begins where the senses end. It is what remains when your mind has no proof, when your plans dissolve, when the world seems silent. It arises from a place in you that is older than fear, a place that remembers the intelligence behind your existence, even when your circumstances do not reflect it. This is why faith cannot be forced. It can only be allowed. If you try to intellectually convince yourself to have faith, you create resistance, you create tension, you create layers of mental noise that drown out the very intuition you're trying to strengthen. True faith is not the attempt to believe harder, but the willingness to soften your grip, soften your fear, soften the contraction around uncertainty. In both physics and mysticism, confidence without evidence is not naive, it is aligned. In quantum mechanics, systems respond to the expectation of the observer long before confirmation arrives. The field interacts with probabilities, influenced by coherence, not proof. The emotional tone you carry becomes a measurement long before the outcome takes shape. A heart that stands firm, even in uncertainty, creates stability in the field. The ancient texts understood this energetic law with poetic clarity. The Upanishads describe faith as the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Jesus referred to it as believing without seeing, not as a test, but as an invitation to operate from the level of spirit rather than the limits of the senses. Hermetic philosophy taught that the universe rearranges itself around the consciousness that knows its place in the whole. Faith is the emotional equivalent of gravity, a steady, unseen force that draws coherence toward it. Most people misunderstand faith because they equate it with hope. But hope is fragile. It carries the tremor of doubt. Faith is different. Faith is a grounded certainty, a quiet presence, a state of being in which you no longer bargain with the universe for reassurance. You do not ask for signs to prove you are supported. You simply walk as if support is inevitable. This posture transforms everything. It changes how you breathe, how you listen, how you make decisions, how you respond to silence, delay, and uncertainty. Faith is not blind. Faith is deeply aware. It is aware that the universe does not move on human timelines. It moves on energetic coherence. And when your emotional tone resonates with trust rather than fear, the field responds not because you commanded it, but because you became aligned with the very frequency that shapes events. This is the heart of awakening. You stop needing evidence because you realize you are the evidence. The paradox of manifestation: needing nothing attracts everything. There is a strange, almost frustrating truth woven into the fabric of existence. The moment you no longer need something is the moment it begins to move toward you. This is the paradox at the heart of manifestation, and it confuses many because it appears to contradict desire itself. But desire is not the problem. Desire is natural, sacred, creative. It is the spark that draws you toward growth and experience. The issue arises when desire becomes need, when wanting hardens into desperation, when longing turns into pressure, when craving distorts your emotional field. Need is a contraction, and contraction repels. In physics, a system under tension loses coherence. Its patterns become chaotic, its particles lose synchrony, its potential collapses into smaller, weaker outcomes. The same thing happens energetically within you. When you need something too intensely, your emotional field tightens, your intuition becomes noisy, your frequency becomes scattered. You move out of alignment with the very reality you want to create. But when you shift from needing to allowing, something remarkable happens. The field around you relaxes, your energy expands, your awareness becomes receptive rather than forceful, and life begins to approach you instead of retreating from you. This is not magic, it is resonance. Needing comes from fear, fear that you might not receive, fear that you're not enough without it, fear that the universe is indifferent to you. Allowing comes from wholeness. It comes from the realization that your worth does not fluctuate based on outcomes. It comes from understanding that the universe responds to your state, not your stress. Ancient teachings echo this paradox with surprising precision. The Tao teaches that the sage grasps nothing, and thus nothing slips away. In Buddhist philosophy, desire becomes suffering only when the mind clings. The Hermetic masters explained that to attract, one must not pursue, but invite. And Rumi, in his timeless softness, wrote, "When I stopped looking, I began to see." Needing nothing does not mean wanting nothing. It means you stop worshipping the outcome and start understanding the source within you. When you need nothing, you signal to the universe, "I am whole now. I am aligned now. I am not waiting for life to complete me." And this emotional tone transforms you into a magnet, not because you force attraction, but because the field resonates with inner stability. People, opportunities, and synchronicities begin to orbit you as if drawn by a gravitational pull. You stop chasing signs, and signs begin chasing you. You stop searching for meaning, and meaning begins revealing itself with effortless clarity. This is the paradox. When you stop needing the universe to prove itself, it finally can. The law of reversal: action from alignment, not from craving. There is a hidden law in the architecture of reality, a principle whispered through ancient texts, echoed in mystical traditions, and now confirmed through the language of energy and coherence. It is the law of reversal. When you act from craving, reality resists. When you act from alignment, reality opens. Most people try to change their lives through force. They push, chase, strive, hustle, manipulate, and stretch themselves into shapes that exhaust their spirit. Their actions may look impressive on the outside, but underneath them lies a frequency of fear. Fear of not having enough, fear of falling behind, fear of being unseen, fear of missing their moment. But action born from craving carries the vibration of lack, and the universe responds with equal measure. Craving is a contraction. Alignment is an expansion. Craving says, I need this to feel whole. Alignment says, I am whole, therefore I move. When action originates from craving, everything becomes heavy. Every step feels like resistance. Every decision feels like a gamble. Even progress feels unstable, as if it might evaporate if you stop trying so hard. This is because craving disconnects you from the field. It narrows your awareness and collapses possibility into the smallest available path. But alignment reverses the entire process. When you act from alignment, you act from clarity rather than panic. Your decisions come from a steady place within you, not from a trembling urgency. You no longer chase outcomes, you follow inner currents. You stop performing for the universe and start partnering with it. Quantum physicist David Bohm spoke of this as flowing participation, a state where the observer and the field move as one coherent system. In this state, action is not a struggle, but a continuation of inner truth. The Taoists called it effortless action, where movement arises naturally from an open heart rather than a restless mind. This is the law of reversal. The less you chase, the more life responds. The more you align, the less you must force. When your emotional tone resonates with steadiness, your actions become catalysts rather than compensations. You don't work harder, you work from a deeper frequency. You make fewer moves, but each one has more gravitational pull. Think of how water shapes stone, not through strain, but through consistency. Think of how planets move not through effort, but through harmony with the forces that sustain them. Think of how intuition guides you, not through noise, but through quiet precision. Alignment makes your actions feel guided rather than pressured. Craving makes your actions feel frantic rather than meaningful. This is why aligned action produces results that seem almost supernatural. The right people appear, timing feels immaculate, doors unlock without knocking, and coincidences cluster around your steps like breadcrumbs from the universe. You are not manipulating reality, you are resonating with it, and the universe responds to resonance far more powerfully than to force. How serenity magnetizes events into coherence. There is a mysterious intelligence woven into serenity, an organizing power that awakens only when the mind stops interfering with the power, natural rhythm of the universe. Serenity is not passivity, and it is not escape. It is a frequency, a state of internal clarity in which your energy stops fracturing and begins to harmonize with the larger field around you. Serenity is coherence. When you enter this state, you create a stable signal within the quantum field. Your emotions no longer oscillate in chaotic directions. Your attention becomes steady. Your internal landscape becomes quiet enough for the universe to respond with precision instead of confusion. The HeartMath Institute has demonstrated that a coherent emotional field created through calmness, gratitude, or deep presence synchronizes biological rhythms within seconds. The heart and brain begin to operate in harmony rather than conflict. But something even more remarkable happens. The electromagnetic field around the body expands and becomes more ordered. This electromagnetic coherence is not metaphorical, it is measurable, and the universe responds to coherence the way a tuning fork responds to its matching pitch. When you enter serenity, you become a clear signal in a noisy world. You become a tuning fork for the reality you desire. Events, people, and opportunities begin to rearrange themselves, not because you manipulate them, but because your coherence influences the informational structure of the field. Your inner stillness becomes a gravitational center around which external circumstances naturally align. Ancient mystics recognized this phenomenon long before science measured it. The Taoists taught that true power comes from returning to the quiet center. Buddhist monks spoke of the still pond, where clarity is not achieved by effort, but by settling the waters. Hermetic philosophers described serenity as the throne of manifestation, the state from which intention shapes form without force. Even Carl Jung observed that synchronicities cluster around individuals whose psyche is in a state of inner coherence. In his view, serenity opens a portal where symbolic events can communicate with the waking world. Why does serenity magnetize coherence? Because serenity is not the absence of emotion, it is the stabilizing of emotion. It is not the rejection of desire, it is the quiet confidence that desire will unfold in its season. It is not detachment from life, it is becoming so deeply aligned with life that resistance disappears. In serenity, you are not fighting reality, you are blending with it. You are no longer trying to accelerate the process, you are allowing timing to find you. And in this allowing, the universe begins to approach with a kind of elegant inevitability. You receive the message before you ask for it. The right person shows up without effort. Opportunities glide toward you with a softness that feels almost unreal. The world itself becomes responsive, not because it changed, but because your posture toward it did. Serenity is not a weakness, it is a frequency of command. When you become calm, reality becomes coherent. Learning to rest inside uncertainty until reality arranges itself. Uncertainty is the terrain where most people lose themselves, not because uncertainty is dangerous, but because we were never taught how to rest inside it. We treat the unknown as a threat, a void, a sign that something is going wrong. In truth, uncertainty is not the absence of order, it is the sacred chamber where order takes shape. The universe arranges itself in the silence before clarity, but most of us panic in that silence. We rush to conclusions, we grasp for signs, we try to fill the space with answers that are not ready to emerge. And in doing so, we disrupt the very process meant to align us. Reality does not unfold on command. It crystallizes when the internal and external fields synchronize, and synchronization requires room. It requires patience. It requires the willingness to stand inside the unknown without collapsing into fear-driven interpretation. This is the art of resting inside uncertainty. In quantum physics, systems evolve according to probability waves. While the wave is expanding, nothing is fixed, nothing is final. The system is not chaotic, it is preparing. It is gathering data from the environment, harmonizing internal factors, and drifting toward the most coherent outcome. Interference during this phase disrupts the entire process. The ancients knew this intuitively. The Tao Te Ching warns that rushing ahead leads to failure. The Kabbalistic mystics taught that the universe forms in stages of concealment before revelation. Buddhist philosophy speaks of liminal space, the threshold where transformation happens not through effort, but through surrender. Jung understood that what he called the transcendent function emerges only when the psyche can endure the tension of the unknown without prematurely collapsing into certainty. In other words, the ability to remain present in uncertainty is the fertilizer of destiny. When you rest inside uncertainty, you stop scrambling for control, and your energy stabilizes, your intuition returns. Your emotional field becomes quiet enough for clarity to rise on its own. You stop forcing outcomes and begin witnessing the natural intelligence of life orchestrating itself. Uncertainty is not emptiness, it is gestation. Think of a seed underground. Nothing visible is happening, no proof exists. The surface looks silent, but beneath the soil, an entire world is reorganizing itself in preparation for life. If you were to dig the seed up every day to check on it, you would kill its potential. But if you trust the unseen process, the seed grows into something far more magnificent than your impatience could have produced. You are the same. Your timing is often concealed before it is revealed. Your path is woven in silence long before you walk it. Your destiny is shaped in the invisible before it enters the visible. When you learn to rest inside uncertainty, you stop demanding that life hurry for your comfort. Instead, you become steady enough for life to synchronize with your essence. And when it does, reality arranges itself with a precision that feels almost divine, because it is. Uncertainty is not the enemy, it is the womb of everything you are becoming. Transforming the urge to control into a practice of allowing control is a reflex born from fear. Fear that life will not unfold unless we supervise it. Fear that something will go wrong unless we tighten our grip. Fear that we will be left behind unless we force outcomes into existence. But the universe does not respond to control. It responds to coherence. And coherence cannot emerge from a clenched heart. The urge to control is not a flaw. It is an outdated survival instinct. It once kept us safe. It once gave us the illusion of certainty in a world we didn't understand. But as consciousness expands, control becomes a barrier rather than a shield. It narrows the field of possibility. It distorts intuition. It interrupts the quiet intelligence guiding our steps. Allowing is not the opposite of action, it is the opposite of interference. Allowing is the art of moving with life instead of wrestling it. It is the shift from force to flow, from fear to trust, from hypervigilance to presence. When you allow, you are not surrendering your power, you are redirecting it. You are choosing to partner with the universe rather than micromanage it. In quantum terms, control collapses the wave too soon. Allowing lets the wave reach its fullest potential. When you try to control outcomes, you limit them to what your current mind can imagine. But the field contains paths and possibilities your conscious mind could never predict. Allowing means letting those invisible pathways form without interrupting them with premature conclusions or fear-driven demands. The mystics expressed this in every tradition. The Taoists spoke of the uncarved block, the natural unfolding of life that reveals its perfection when humans stop imposing their small expectations onto vast potential. The Sufis taught that the one who trusts does not grasp, because grasping blinds the heart to the guidance already present. Hermetic philosophy describes allowing as the soul's return to the universal rhythm, a state where intention flows effortlessly into manifestation. Psychologically, Carl Jung called it the letting happen principle, the moment when the psyche ceases to interfere and instead collaborates with the deeper intelligence trying to emerge. Allowing is not passive. It is receptive, it is alert, it is deeply engaged with life, but without the franticness that comes from fear. To allow is to recognize that control was always an illusion. To allow is to understand that life unfolds more elegantly when you trust its timing. To allow is to remember that the universe does not move under pressure, it moves under resonance. Control fragments your energy. Allowing organizes it. Control creates resistance. Allowing creates flow. Control demands signs. Allowing receives them. When you transform control into allowing, you shift from a worldview of scarcity to one of partnership. You become a collaborator with reality rather than a supervisor of it. And in that collaboration, something miraculous happens. Life begins to reveal pathways that were invisible while you were trying to force your own. Allowing is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength, strength rooted in trust, clarity, and alignment. You stop chasing when you realize the path was moving toward you all along. There comes a moment in awakening when everything you once chased begins to reveal its true nature. The signs you hunted, the synchronicities you tracked, the guidance you begged for, the clarity you tried to decode. You begin to understand something quiet and astonishing. They were never ahead of you. They were always moving toward you. You weren't following the universe's trail. The universe was aligning itself with your becoming. You didn't need to run. You needed to remember. You didn't need to chase. You needed to soften. When you stop grasping at external confirmation, the path stops feeling distant. You no longer see fate as something you must catch up to. You feel it as something that rises to meet your steps. Life shifts from a hunt to a harmony, from pursuit to partnership, from effort to resonance. This is the truth hidden beneath every spiritual tradition, every mystical text, every ancient teaching about trust. You are not walking toward your destiny. Your destiny is walking toward you. But you only perceive this movement when your energy becomes calm enough to feel its approach. When you release the frantic need for signs, your inner field becomes quiet. When you stop collapsing possibility with fear, you allow timing to reveal itself. When you stop trying to control the path, you begin to sense the subtle intelligence guiding it. Imagine standing on the shore as the tide slowly rises. You don't chase the water, it moves toward you. Your life works the same way. The guidance you need moves toward you when you stop blocking it with urgency. The opportunities you seek move toward you when you stop gripping outcomes. The right people find you when you no longer distort your energy with desperation. The universe responds not to your pressure, but to your presence. Your presence is the meeting place, the threshold where the unseen becomes seen. When you stand in this presence, you realize that alignment was never about predicting the future. It was about preparing your internal state so the future could find you. The mystics described this using words like surrender, trust, and stillness. Quantum physics describes it as coherence, resonance, and wave alignment. Both are pointing to the same phenomenon, a universe that moves in response to your vibrational steadiness. You stop chasing when you discover that what you seek is already seeking coherence with you. You stop chasing when you realize that signs don't appear because you demand them. They appear because you embody the frequency that calls them forth. You stop chasing when you understand that the unfolding of your life is not random but relational, responsive, intelligent. And when this truth lands in your heart, something profound happens. You breathe differently. You listen differently. You move differently. You become the calm center around which your reality organizes itself. You stop needing proof because you become the evidence. You stop demanding signs because you become the signal. You stop chasing the path because you feel the path rising to meet you. And in that moment, you understand the deepest truth of all. You were never meant to chase the universe. You were meant to remember that it has been walking beside you all along.